Thank you, and I'm so delighted to introduce Fernanda Rain, founder and CEO of Got History, for the next Big Idea Talk.
Thank you, Abby, and off we go. Did you know that the spirit of the Middle Ages is everywhere? I don't mean that in a weird sort of Dungeons and Dragons, wizards and druids kind of way. I mean, it's literally everywhere. It's in the harmonized music that we listen to on our phones. It's in the structure of town governments. It's in the Roman Catholic Church. And of course, it's in universities. Universities all carry a core element of the Middle Ages in them. And what that is and why it's important for the future is what this talk is about. I promise to take you on a hyperspeed tour through time to find an answer to the question of what role universities can play in the future. Please forgive me in advance for not making this an entirely global tour and for skipping over large parts of the world that of course had incredible centers of learning. But the threads from those institutions to today's university models are pretty spurious. So we're going to focus on the Western Hemisphere and begin our journey in Baghdad in the year 1067. We're celebrating the opening of the College of Islamic Sciences. Now close your eyes and imagine for a second beautiful Islamic buildings, magnificent arches, tiled structures with beautiful columns, housing law faculties, a hospital, a huge library, and free writing supplies and lamps for all students who attend. This is fantastic. Power at this time is still in the hands of the Abbasid Caliphate, who rule an expansive Islamic empire across the Middle East and North Africa. And in this empire, they've established centers of learning, one of them being this one in Baghdad. The purpose of learning at this time was not to figure out anything new about the world. These scholars were intent on taking everything that was known about the world and unifying it with the law of God as revealed by Muhammad. They offered at this school all classical subjects of study: grammar, poetry, history, law, theology, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, music, you get the picture. In all of these subjects, the key source of knowledge was the writings that have been passed down from the classical Greeks, in particular Aristotle. And Aristotle had offered a theory of the universe and rules for how to bring everyone and everything into harmony. The idea was, if you study these rules, you would know the code for creating a thriving society. You could participate in leadership roles in clergy and in government because if you studied Aristotle, you understood how to make the world work, and of course, the rule of God. In these early iterations, universities were set up to connect human beings with these eternal laws of the universe and the God who ruled above it. Power was something you got by finding your place in this world and by knowing the code for keeping the system alive. The heyday of Islamic learning in Baghdad, however, did not last very long. By the late 1200s, you had Christian crusaders coming in from the north, Mongols and Turks coming in from the east, who basically annihilated the entire blossoming landscape of Islamic learning. Thousands of books were burned, libraries were destroyed, and the entire Islamic world receded from the forefront of worldly learning for several hundred years. The center of gravity of education and learning in the world shifted to the northwest, which is where we're going to make the next stop in our historical tour, which is in Paris in the year 1250. So Paris is at this time a city that is incredibly smelly, but like all other cities in Europe, at a time of incredibly rapid growth. The Crusades are pretty much over, and the warriors have brought back vivid stories of glorious cultures in the East. Europe has recently rediscovered dredging techniques that allow more productive agriculture and construction by bodies of water, which is why cities are growing, travel is taking off, and all of that together lets power start accumulating in the hands of merchants and the middle class. Now, this is the time when universities are first formally created as corporations of learners who are united in a shared commitment to bringing the lessons of the recently rediscovered Greek and Latin texts, the same ones that got the Islamic scholars so excited, to the Western world. People in the West also started dreaming of having their civilization, now the Christian civilization, rise to the level that the Greek and Roman civilization had enjoyed. And with all this excitement over pagan teachings and Eastern cultures, the Catholic Church, of course, needed to take control of the narrative and made a move by expanding its church schools to universities to maintain its dominant role in learning. Now, one of the most important partners in this project of the church was Thomas Aquinas, who is right here in Paris with us in 1250. He's just settling into his lifelong project of reconciling Aristotle and natural law with the truth of God, this time revealed not by Muhammad, but, as you guessed it, by Jesus Christ. With his teachings, he defines the role of the university for the next 500 years. Universities become training centers for the clergy, for lawyers and doctors, and all their training was focused on learning about universal principles and about preparing leaders again to expand the reach of Christianity to spread universal harmony and well-being as defined by the Catholic Church. Universities sprung up all over Europe to support this unifying cause. By 1500, we have 77 universities in Latin Christendom, which is all institutions bringing students from across Europe, unified by what they're studying. It's all the same, no matter where they are, and of course, the language of Latin. Now, this facade of the unity of humankind under one church framework comes crashing down in 1517, which brings us to our next stop of the tour, which is Wittenberg, a cow town to the southwest of Berlin, with a university featuring a cranky and short-tempered monk named Martin Luther, whose radical views shake the foundations of the Western world. Luther shreds the idea of unity of the Catholic Church. In questioning the authority of the Pope and of the church hierarchy to determine whether you're saved or not, he advocated for an individualistic, faith-based approach to the Word of God. But by making virtue a private matter, Luther sort of blows up the agenda that the church and universities had been pushing for 500 years. The whole idea of a universally connected humankind led by one church was canceled. The energy of the years between 1550 and 1750 was not an energy of unity anyway. It was conflict and expansion. And universities sort of become a side stage to the theater of Europe. What's going on in this period is the most bloody religious wars Europe had ever seen, monarchs centralizing power, Europeans oppressing indigenous peoples in faraway lands, extractive industries booming, riches and glory for merchants and monarchs all over Europe. The arts are exploding, and universities, and all of this excitement, academics were arguing whether all of this was really okay with God. They were discussing whether slavery and subjugation of natives was really in line with the natural laws of God. It's actually quite a tragedy that no one was listening to academics at this time, because while all these wars were being waged and empires built and riches accumulated, these academics were writing amazing treatises on the evils of exploitation and on the equality of human dignity before God. But universities didn't hit the power scene again until around 1750, when the genie of scientific thinking was literally released from the bottle. And this genie, when paired with the teachings of natural law that had been quietly incubating at universities, it called upon man not to find his role in the universe, but to become its master. David Landius calls this period after 1750 the time of the unbound Prometheus, of a continuous and ongoing industrial revolution. For the roughly 200 years between 1750 and 1945, universities become the engine of the first ever Promethean project to know more, to invent more, to unlock the real secrets of the universe for the benefit of humanity or for your nation, and to build a system without monarchs, with power in the hands of the people. Universities breed the ideas that topple kings, expand empires, and prepare global wars of mass destruction. Now, one of the most powerful centers of this Promethean project was the Humboldt University in Berlin, founded in 1810, which is our next stop. The scientific revolution at this point in 1810 is well underway. And here we stand, try to imagine this beautifully designed, clearly classically inspired building to harbor this spirit. Across the street from an opera house, where Mozart premiered his operas, across from a Protestant church, a Catholic church, in sightline of the Castle of the King, it's the spirit of the Enlightenment in the heart of the city, and cast in its most exquisite form. For decades before, academics have been arguing vehemently against the church that the ultimate test of a theory is not whether you can prove it through argument, but whether you can explain it by gathering and analyzing data. Things were true not because the church or the Greeks said so, but because you could show it was true through experimentation. So with this, of course, power was stripped from the hands of the church and from the religious scholars of the past. Power was now in the hands of the person who could set up experiments, find data, and make arguments, and then popularize these insights. At this point, let's hop across the pond to make a brief stop in Chicago in 1890, where the oil magnate John D. Rockefeller founded a university copying the German model of a research institution to spread advanced learning across the nation. By this time, in the late 19th century, universities started springing up out of the ground like mushrooms after rain. Power in this time is solidly in the hands of the industrial class and of those who dream of building empires to unify the globe with a network of production and trade. This is the height of nationalist competition. Universities become centers of innovation and producers of all kinds of knowledge, but also they become the supporters of theories and knowledge that can bolster the power of these nations. Historians, biologists, and anthropologists create these elaborate scientific theories of racial difference. Engineers and physicists design the machines to accelerate growth of an industry, all in a spirit not of universal connectedness and harmony, but in a spirit of competition and conquest. Well, we know how that next phase ended. World War II was a global conflagration brought on by racism paired with the competitive spirit of imperial ambition. But from its ashes, the phoenix of this forgotten idea of the natural law and universal principles of humankind did rise once more. The United Nations were formed as a governing institution of world affairs after the war to basically uphold the ideas which Aristotle and his fans had been keeping alive over the centuries. Universities after 1945 did not directly plug into this mission of restoring these principles. Instead, they took on a dual role, first of continuing the Promethean project of expanding knowledge, innovation, and progress, and secondly, of expanding access to learning. Universities became centers of activism regarding access to education and opportunity. We all know that that project of ensuring a true meritocracy of our universities with access based on interest and skill, not on race, gender, or class, is still just at the beginning. At this point, we have 25,000 universities spread across every continent but Antarctica. Power today lies in the hands of the people, as factual knowledge resides at everyone's fingertips, and ideas and energy can travel at a multiple of the speed of light. Innovation and invention today is not limited to universities. On the contrary, some of the world's greatest innovators are doing their work outside of the confines of the university. Universities are jockeying to claim that they're able to prepare young people for this world of the future with the jobs and the innovative thinking that will allow them to thrive. Prometheus is still unbound. But at the same time, we are realizing the fragility of our planet and the finite nature of the resources that were gifted to us in the shape of our Earth, our common home. We're also realizing that the concept of universal human dignity is not yet realized, and that hard work lies ahead to make it work within structures that were engineered for a phase of intense competition. So what does this tour of university history in 10 minutes leave with us as a lesson on what role the 25,000 incubators of learning can play in the 21st century? How can they contribute to an everyone a changemaker world? History seems to suggest that a terrific role for the university of the future would be to once again play the role it did in the Middle Ages of bridging concepts and uniting them into a learning framework that will advance harmony. The university could see its role in taking everything that our Promethean drive has taught us about the world and our understanding of universal human dignity and connecting them with an overarching commitment to the shared curatorship of the earth. It could lead the historical endeavor of creating a universal human project of weaving a global democratic community without cultural arrogance, without domination, without one religious framework. Everyone a changemaker means everyone has a spark of the divine and has a contribution to make towards bringing the world into harmony. That is at the core of the spirit of the Middle Ages that universities can carry forth into the 21st century. Thank you.